Roadhouse is known for fistfights, knives, and brutal brawls. But behind the scenes, the actors battled cancer, drowning, and death. In this film, discover their real names and pay tribute to their legacy. Patrick Swayze as James Dalton. At the age of 36, Patrick Swayze played James Dalton in the 1989 film Roadhouse. At the height of his fame and power, Swayze, the powerful but moral guardian of the stone, not only captivated audiences with his quick, graceful movements, but also left a lasting impression with his eyes, which always held a quiet sadness. But behind the scenes, Swayze also struggled with his own inner darkness. Born on August 18, 1952 in Houston, Texas, Patrick grew up between two worlds. One was the lighted dance floor of his mother, Patsy Swayze, the famous choreographer. The second is the quiet loneliness of a determined but secretly loving father. In 1982, his father, Jesse Wayne Swayze, died of a heart attack. At that moment, Patrick Swayze's resolve began to waver. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. Instead, he found alcohol. He drank to forget the emptiness that tormented him. In his memoir, The Time of My Life, he wrote, "I had lost the person who understood me best. I felt like I was in the middle of the desert. And wine was the only answer." There were days when he would get drunk and wake up with no memory of the scenes he had shot. Lisa Nemi, his wife and longtime dance partner, once admitted that there were nights when she had to drag him out of the bathroom. He would sit quietly, crying, drunk, wondering if he was slowly becoming a copy of his father, strong on the outside but broken on the inside. That wound never healed. Swayze's drink was like a word. When he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2008, his doctor bluntly told him, "If you don't stop drinking, you'll die sooner." He just laughed. Even while filming The Beast, he secretly drank at night to feed a part of himself. When the chemotherapy tube was removed, the bottle of wine returned to the table because he couldn't imagine life without pain. Patrick Swayze died on September 14, 2009, at the age of 57 after a more than 20-month battle with cancer. In his final moments, he lay in a hospital bed, holding the hand of Lisa, a woman who had seen the darkest corners of his being, and whispered, "I'm sorry I dragged you through the fire with me. Sorry." His estimated net worth at the time of his death was around $40 million, but his true worth lies in his image as a star who kept going even when he was broken inside. Ben Gazzara as Brad Wesley. At the age of 58, Ben Gazzara played Brad Wesley in the 1989 movie Roadhouse and became an irresistible villain, a businessman who controlled the entire town of Jasper with kicks, money, and threats. His angular face, experienced gaze, and commanding voice made Brad Wesley an unforgettable villain, charming and terrifying at the same time. However, behind his status quo and extraordinary acting talent hides a turbulent personal life. Born on August 28, 1930 in New York, Ben Gazzara, born Biagio Anthony Gazzara, grew up in the narrow streets of Little Italy, possessing a rebellious and artistic spirit from an early age. After rising to fame alongside the legendary John Cassavetes, Gazzara seemed to have it all: talent, fame, and admiration. But his marriages were stormy. He married 3 times, and his marriage to actress Janice Rule ended painfully when he was caught cheating on her. He admitted the attack and said he was never the type of man to hold back. But his major drinking problem was effectively overcome. On the set, he was known for his reticence and frequent disappearances for no reason, which is why he was kicked out of several big projects. In 2008, tragedy quietly resurfaced. Gazzara was about to die at the last minute, which is a common occurrence among alcoholics and those prone to slurred speech. 4 years later, pancreatic cancer took his life, ending a life that was both epic and whimsical, like a movie. He died on February 3, 2012 at the age of 81, leaving behind a fortune estimated at $20 million and a dark but authentic cinematic legacy. Red West Forte by Red Webster. Red West was 53 when he played Red Webster in Roadhouse, a character who represented the honest, hard-working residents of Jasper, a tortured auto repair shop owner who never gave up. This gentle, good-natured character may have seemed like a minor character, but he became a symbol of strength despite Brad Wesley's brutality. In reality, however, Red West had an even more tragic story than the one in the film. Born on March 20th, 1936 in Memphis, Tennessee, West was Elvis Presley's schoolmate, bodyguard, driver, and trusted advisor for over 20 years. The two dressed West in a nightgown at Graceland and were willing to do anything to harm the king of rock and roll. But in 1977, their close relationship was broken. West, along with several other bodyguards, wrote the book Elvis: What Happened, which exposed Elvis's drug use and aggressive behavior. The book caused a media frenzy that enraged Elvis to the point that he cut off all contact with him. They remained silent until Elvis's death. West was then shunned by many of his loyal fans, called a traitor, although his original intention, as he claimed, was to save his friend from imminent death. The pain of losing a friend haunted Red for the rest of his life. Although he devoted himself to acting, writing great music, and achieving success, deep down he was still the man who brought the darkness and unspoken farewell to Presley. Jeff Healey, one of the two men sitting next to each other in the 1960 Cadillac, plays Cody. At around 22 years old, Jeff Healey played Cody in the movie Roadhouse, reviving the tunes of the Double Deuce Bar. In the film, Cody is a blind guitarist with incredible abilities, a character far from reality, as Jeff Healey himself is blind in real life. However, Healey's life was a sad ballad, written with physical pain and unexpected resilience. Born on March 25, 1966 in Toronto, Canada, Healey lost his sight completely at the age of 1 due to rural glioblastoma multiforme, a rare form of childhood eye cancer. Both of his eyes were surgically removed, leaving 2 hollows under the distinctive dark glasses that became his personal symbol. Instead of giving up, Jeff learned to turn his failure into a talent. He founded the Jeff Healey Band and became an icon in the music industry, gaining recognition from legends like Eric Clapton and B.B. King. In 2007, he was unexpectedly diagnosed with lung cancer, which came as a shock to a man who had never smoked. Doctors suspected it was a genetic complication after his previous battle with eye cancer. He endured treatment, continued to perform, and finished his last album in his final days, as if he knew he didn't have much time left. Jeff Healey passed away on March 2, 2008, just 3 weeks before his 42nd birthday. At the time, his net worth was estimated at $5 million, a sum he earned through music, not acting. The last photo that moved fans was the one of him lying in a hospital bed, still holding his guitar, as if he had never left the stage. His wife Krista said Jeff wanted to be remembered as an artist who never gave up, even when the world was dark. It is true that Healey never saw the light, but he brought light to many people. Terry Funk as Morgan. At the age of 45, Terry Funk played Morgan in Roadhouse 1989, giving a strong and fierce performance. Morgan was more than just a thug in Double Deuce. He was a living symbol of an era in Funk's life, brutal, impulsive, and ready to attack. Audiences embraced this character not only because of the realism of each punch, but also because Funk didn't have to play him. He was simply himself. Born on June 30th, 1944 in Hammond, Indiana, Terry Funk comes from a fighting family and has never shied away from the spotlight or the dangers of the ring. But the fame of the ring also casts a long shadow. During a career that spanned more than 50 years, he suffered countless fractures, numerous brain injuries and knee injuries so severe that he wore more horns than championship belts. These repeated injuries left Funk, like many fighters, dependent on painkillers to stay on his feet. In a recent interview, he admitted, "I took Percocet like they wanted it, not because I wanted to." This addiction was never discovered, but everyone who worked with Funk knew he was a fighter who never gave up until his body gave out. Although his marriage to Vicky lasted more than 50 years, Funk later struggled with the effects of decades of head injuries in the ring. He died on August 23, 2023, at the age of 79 after a long battle with heart disease and dementia. His net worth was only around $1 million, a modest sum for a legend who was once considered the father of hardcore wrestling. Keith David as Ernie Bass. Keith David was 33 when he played Ernie Bass in Roadhouse. He was one of the most memorable supporting characters, thanks to his distinctive, deep, and powerful voice. As a bartender in the heart of a busy bar, Ernie Bass is harmless, inoffensive, but somehow manages to lull us into a false sense of security. He is a character who stands firm in the midst of the storm, maintaining a quiet strength. And maybe this reflects every Keith David in real life. Born on June 4, 1956 in Harlem, New York, Keith David began his career on Broadway, but for years struggled to land a role in a major motion picture. Despite his legendary voice, which later became recognizable in hundreds of animated films, video games, and commercials, David was once rejected because of the color of his skin. "I wasn't looking for the lead, I just auditioned," he once said, and often the door would close before I could reach the handle. In the 1980s, Keith David struggled with the definition of stillness, deep immersion, and bitter silence. His roles in Platoon, They Live, and The Thing really earned him recognition as a versatile actor and not just a good singer. In 2025, at the age of 69, Keith David is still a regular on Greenleaf Nope and provides voices for major projects. His net worth is around $5 million, but that's not his highest net worth. It is his presence, a symbol of a generation of black actors who not only persevered, but distinguished themselves with their talent and value. Kelly Lynch as Dr. Elizabeth Clay. At age 30, Kelly Lynch played Dr. Elizabeth Clay on Roadhouse. Her character, a smart, tough, yet compassionate doctor, brought emotional depth and humanity to Dalton's brutal world. With her light blonde hair and eyes that seemed to understand the protagonist's inner pain, Lynch quickly captured the attention of contemporary audiences. But behind her sweet smile hid a woman who fought for a long time to be recognized in action films only by her pretty face. Born on January 31, 1959 in Golden Valley, Minnesota, Kelly Lynch began her career as a model and airline passenger before turning to acting. Hollywood quickly became fascinated by her elegant appearance, but the product itself became a cage. "I used to think that beauty and talent were enough, but they only see skin," she once said. Kelly withstood the pressure to maintain her style, the ubiquitous beauty salons and the civility of producers as she approached her 40s. She admitted that in the late 90s, when roles were rare and phones were ringing, she suffered from mild depression. But, like her character on Roadhouse, Kelly didn't give up. She moved on to television, impressing audiences on shows like 9021 So, Magic City, and most recently, Mr. Mercedes. Offstage, she lives a quiet life with her husband, writer Mitch Glazer, who has always said that Kelly is an artist who never reached the stage she deserved. At the age of 66, he continues to act, balancing family life and mentoring younger actors. Her net worth is roughly $8 million, but she may be worth more than Kelly Lynch has proven. John Doe as Pat McGurn. John Doe was also 36 when he played Pat McGurn in Roadhouse. Pat McGurn, Brad Wesley's loyal bartender, is a diminutive but lively character who embodies the inner turmoil that led to the breakup of Double Deuce. This seemingly simple role is actually a reflection of John Doe himself, a man who spent part of his life surrounded by smoke, alcohol, and the violent rebellion of American punk rock. Born on February 25, 1953, in Decatur, Illinois, John Doe co-founded the band X, one of the most iconic figures of the Los Angeles punk rock scene of the early 1980s. But fame also brought its dangers. During a concert in 1982, Doe collapsed from a combination of alcohol and sedatives. Those years were a dark spiral of endless touring, unbridled sex life, broken relationships, and an addiction that, Doe later admitted, was about the music she played constantly, which became more soothing the more she listened to it. After a fatal car accident in 1985, he decided to give up drugs, end a long-term relationship, and seek therapy. "I didn't want to be just a sad note in the history of punk," he later wrote in his memoirs. When Doe landed the role of Pat in the movie Roadhouse, he was brave and determined to rebuild his career, but the ghosts of his past continued to haunt him. He turned to more serious acting, independent film and television, and continued to write and compose music. At 72, John Doe still lives in California, actively making music and giving lectures about his post-punk life, recounting the glorious and painful period of rebellion. His net worth is estimated at around $4 million. When asked what helped him survive, John did not mention drugs, money, or gambling. He simply replied, "I learned to listen to myself without letting the noise in my head drown me out." Like his character, Kevin Teague fought his own unseen battles. Born August 13, 1944 in Los Angeles, Kevin Teague rose to fame as paramedic Roy DeSoto on the television series Emergency Services, a role that defined his public image in the 1970s. But that fame turned out to be a double-edged sword. After Emergency, Hollywood assigned him a safe, bland, and uninspired TV role. It took nearly a decade for Teague to be seen as a serious actor again, he once said. In the 1980s, he struggled with supporting roles and even faced a financial crisis so severe that he had to cash in his pension to support his family. The wound did not bleed, but it followed him throughout his career. Therefore, Roadhouse, although a commercial action film, gave him an opportunity to break the mold and prove that he is capable of playing the role of a normal, calm man facing evil. Today, at the age of 80, Kevin Teague still performs on stage, occasionally appears on television, and teaches music to the younger generation. His net worth is estimated at around $2.5 million. Although not a significant amount, it sufficiently reflects the strong personality and depth of character of a man who, instead of chasing fame, decided to stay true to his art. Sam Elliott as Wade Garrett. At the age of 45, Sam Elliott starred as Wade Garrett in Roadhouse, 1989, playing the calm, experienced man, mentor, and loyal friend of James Dalton. Born on August 9, 1944 in Sacramento, California, Sam Elliott grew up surrounded by ambition and obstacles. His father, an employee of the Ministry of the Interior, fiercely opposed his dreams of becoming a public figure. "He didn't believe I could make it, and I lost him before I could prove him wrong," Elliott once said in a moving public speech. The sudden death of his father when Sam was only 18 left a lasting, motivating, and devastating scar. After years of physical labor, he finally started getting smaller roles. However, throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, Elliott was portrayed as a silent cowboy, a stoic man of the Old West, a role he admitted to hating. "What else could Hollywood do to me but put me on a horse?" he once said bitterly. The Elliott phase lasted for years. He spent that time writing scripts, recording voices, and even repairing to make ends meet. But he never gave up. Fortunately, there was one woman behind the scenes who never left him, actress Catherine Ross, whom Elliott married in 1984. Despite their separation, industry pressures, and even marriage rumors in the 1990s, They stayed together, navigating a tough Hollywood life that lasted longer than expected. Elliot once said, "I wouldn't be who I am without Catherine. She was my fire. She gave me the strength to withstand the cold of the industry." Now in his 80s, he continues to act, receiving critical acclaim for his roles in A Star is Born, 2018, The Ranch, 2018, and most recently, 1883. She proves once again that old horses keep the deepest stories. Marshall Teague as Jimmy. At the age of 36, Marshall Teague played Jimmy in the movie Roadhouse, 1989, the most dangerous opponent James Dalton has ever faced. With his rough clothes, piercing gaze, and masterful martial arts, Jimmy is more than just a sidekick. He is Jasper's nightmare. The brutal, tense, and intense hand-to-hand fight between Jimmy and Dalton at the lake became one of the most legendary action scenes of the 1980s. However, few people know that Teague did not act. He actually fought, was brutally beaten, and paid the price with blood, wounds, and the loss of a part of his health that was irreversibly damaged. Born on April 16, 1953 in Newport, Tennessee, Marshall Teague was originally a professional hand-to-hand fighter who served in the United States Navy. He came to Hollywood not through acting school, but through hand-to-hand combat. Early in his career, Teague was often cast in roles such as mercenaries, bodyguards, and assassins. Roles with little dialogue, but a lot of action. He's panting, moaning. But in a recent interview, he admitted that during the filming of Roadhouse, a misplaced kick caused a small tear on his kneecap. Many fight scenes went on until he was completely exhausted. "I used to imagine myself as a fighter who says something and then hits it. But the plan is not to fight. Here you have to endure pain again and again, just as the script dictated," he said with a smile, although the experience still shone in his eyes. No booze, no scandal, but Teague tackled a much bigger problem in Hollywood. There was no room for older men who could fight. Years later, with his hair graying and his action roles dwindling, Teague taught martial arts, worked as a stunt coordinator, and appeared in supporting roles on such television series as Walker, Texas Ranger, and Nash Bridges. In 2025, at the age of 72, he is still working, attending film conventions, and training the next generation of martial artists. His net worth is around $3 million, not a huge sum, but enough to live comfortably. Gary Hudson is stronger than Steve. Gary Hudson was 33 when he played Steve in Roadhouse, 1989. The epitome of disappointment. A sloppy, undisciplined security guard who was fired immediately after Dalton's firing. But it's not his strength or psychological depth that makes Steve memorable. It is the face of a man who believed that this would be the biggest step in his life. And unfortunately it was, just not in the way expected. This milestone was no great feat, but the sound of her soft breathing pulled him back from the edge. Born March 26, 1956. In Newport News, Virginia, Gary Hudson was one of the promising faces competing for supporting roles in the late 1980s. Tall, handsome, muscular, with eyes big enough to play either protagonist or villain, Hudson entered Hollywood with ambition, but thinking about it alerted him to the industry's eternal gray area. After Roadhouse, things started to pick up, but then something happened. Only those forgotten tours that would appear for a few minutes and then disappear. "I didn't solve any problem, and maybe that's my fault," he once admitted with a bitter smile. Without ever becoming a star, Gary Hudson became a household name. In 2025, at the age of 69, Gary Hudson lived quietly in Canada, rarely appearing in public. His net worth is approximately $1.5 million, accumulated from supporting and uncredited voice roles. There is no memory. There is no going back. When asked about Roadhouse, he just smiles and says, "I thought it was the beginning, but it ended with goodbye." Maybe Gary Hudson carries a different kind of pain inside. The pain of a man who was never allowed to fall because he was never allowed to truly rise again. Roadhouse brought us countless memories, from life lessons to unforgettable characters and the actors who brought them to life. Kimberly Herron, Cow Party Girl. At the age of 32, Kimberly Herron starred in the movie Roadhouse, 1989, leaving an indelible impression as a party girl, a supporting role in chaotic bar scenes, characterized by her sensual beauty and seductive charm. Although her appearance was brief, she left a lasting impression with her signature Playboy material. Interestingly, Kimberly appeared on the cover of this prestigious magazine in the early 80s, but behind her glamorous appearance on the screen was a silent struggle. Born on October 2, 1957 in Santa Barbara, California, Kimberly Herron grew up surrounded by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, but experienced the dark side of fame from an early age. When she began her career as an entertainer as a Playboy model in 1981, she was immediately thrust into the limelight, admired and condemned. Although she never skimped on material things, she was beautiful, but her voice was overlooked. The pressure to maintain a flawless appearance, the isolation of being passed over for leading roles, and the fierce competition in the industry led to her struggling with chronic depression. By the 1990s, Kimberly had practically disappeared from Hollywood. She lived in seclusion, away from the media. Only close friends knew that she discreetly attended group therapy. In 2020, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a condition she hid until it weakened her, and she was unable to treat it. Friends said she refused the operation because she did not want to risk a mastectomy. Kimberly Herron passed away on October 28, 2022, in her hometown of Santa Barbara at the age of 65. Her estimated net worth at the time of her death was around $500,000, with most of her wealth coming from the peak years of her career as a model and film actress.